Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to some more information about Chronicles Medieval. This game was announced roughly around about a month ago, and over on their Discord they've recently been answering questions that people had about the game, and it really gave us a good insight on everything that they're at least aiming to accomplish with this. If you haven't seen my original video on the release trailer and also the 8-minute dev diary that they did also drop alongside that, then be sure to go back and check it out. But basically this game is looking to be a competitor to Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord in the kind of RPG sandbox medieval genre, and I am completely here for it. They seem like they've been doing a great job of reaching out to modders to build in the modder integration very early in development. There's stuff about co-op in this Q&A, weapons, the era, the battle system, stuff like diplomacy and politics. They go through a lot of it in these questions. So I do recommend you go over and check out their Discord so that you guys don't miss any extra information like this in the future, but we're going to run through it. And again, if you guys enjoyed this, you want me to keep on keeping you guys up to date with everything new that they announce over on their Discord, then just let me know by dropping a like and a comment down below. It helps out massively and it goes a very long way. Okay, well let's start off with the first question. So someone asks, is it an open world or something different? And they reply, the game features an overworld map exploring from a top-down perspective, and we call this the exploration map. While it is not traditionally an open world in a third-person sense, it is an open in structure where you can explore any accessible region on the map. So I think by that they basically mean it's going to be very similar to how Bannerlord is. You're going to be basically not running around in first person and exploring it like The Witcher, for example, much more just like with Bannerlord, where you're looking down and you're moving around your army across the map. And then they say, as you explore the world, you'll encounter points of interest like settlements, battlefields, camps, etc., many of which you can enter, transition seamlessly into detailed third-person instances for a closer and more immersive experience where you actively work on a layer fog of war system to make exploration more immersive and strategic. Here's how it's shaping up. So level 1, unexplored. Areas you've never visited remain completely hidden, blocked out or obscured to capture the mystery of the unknown. 2, explored but outdated. You've been there before, but the information is outdated. Some of it might still hold true, but the world may have moved on. Returning could reveal new threats or opportunities. Knowledge is key and is gained in different ways. The upper hand isn't always a sword, it's what you know. And then finally, level 3 is current scouting range. These are regions within your party's line of sight where data is live and accurate, giving you the full tactical picture and advantage. This layer adds tension and depth to your choices, emphasis of power or of information. What you know and what you don't know shapes how you move, prepare, strategize, and react. It's also part of delivering a more immersive and decision-rich experience. So that sounds really cool. I'm not sure if they're talking about this 3-layer system just in normal maps or if over on the exploration map as well. Because it'd be kind of cool, right? You don't know if you're, say, in like France, you don't really know what's going on over in the Byzantine Empire or anything else along those lines. So lands could be changing hands and stuff, and if you don't keep up to date, a massive foe could be arriving on your border and you don't even realize it. It's gonna be interesting to see if this is also accurate for like big battles as well, and you go down into that first person mode and you fight a battle. Like if you lose sight of units, are they not going to be there anymore? It's a really interesting system. I'm excited to see how this actually plays out. I do definitely like the fog of war style system, though I think it's going to add more immersion and reward players for scouting and preparing their decisions a little bit more. We then move on to the next question in the Q&A, and it says, can you switch between the different camera modes whilst playing? And they say the combination of the game, both top down and third person perspective. The top-down view is used while traveling the world, whilst third-person mode is enabled during the activities such as battles. You cannot freely toggle between the two. Again, you know, just like Bannerlord, I imagine that's exactly how the system will work. They also drop another picture of a cool-looking settlement work in progress as well, which looks pretty neat right there. We continue on. Is there going to be a defined storyline? So they answer, there is no predefined linear story, no. Instead, you select from historical chapters, and this gets kind of interesting and gives us a little bit more flavor about the game, e.g. the 100 Years' War, with dynamic world events related to the chapter you've chosen rather than following a fixed narrative. You'll encounter a various variety of quests, often rooted in historical context. These quests differ in length, complexity, and consequence, offering you meaningful choice that shape both your character and the world around you. It's all about sandbox-style storytelling, giving you tools, setting, and opportunity to craft your own unique journey. Along the way, you'll also interact with powerful factions, navigate their agendas and rivalries, whether through diplomacy, reputation, or brute force. You'll have the opportunity to rise through the ranks and leave your mark on the era. So this is obviously really interesting. They're basically saying that it's going to kind of have the system of like Crusader Kings, where you can start in different quote-unquote eras / chapters. And that's a really interesting way to go about it, because again, I'm always going to be comparing this to Bannerlord, because it does seem that's basically the not quite inspiration, but that's kind of what they're going for in a sense, and hopefully just going to make it 10 times better. And of course, their take on the subject. But having different eras could really provide you with a unique decision, because all of a sudden, like in one playthrough, it's like a massive focus around England and France fighting in the 100 Years' War. But then all of a sudden, like those empires, again, they don't, but obviously those empires could shrink, and then all of a sudden the geography of Europe, medieval Europe, is completely different. You could have the invasions in Spain or the Reconquista, all of that just completely changes the dynamic and actually gives you a more fresh approach. So you're playing the same campaign, but it's completely different with different setups of factions, and you'll be able to achieve different things. So I'm very interested in this. I hope it works. I'm always wary about games like splitting content again across like different campaigns, for example. A lot of the time I'd love them to focus on adding everything into one big campaign, but I'm also very interested. If it's just a different start date with different setups and stuff, then I think that's very interesting. And if each of them have unique quests and stuff, it could actually be a really, really cool setup. They go on, speaking of this, to say, will stories unfold across multiple eras? And they mention you will select the historical chapter that is most interested to you and develop your story within it. Each playthrough occurs within a single historical chapter, leading to up to 35 years in game. Time passes and characters age, and when you retire, you'll receive a summary of your journey to reflect the legacy that you've built. So again, it's hard to say, because like I haven't ever done a campaign to 35 years inside of Bannerlord, so it'll be interesting to see how the time does flow in game in there. But again, it's an interesting take, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm not just looking for like, oh yeah, you take Bannerlord and you make it a little bit better, you add in diplomacy or whatever. No, I want a completely fresh take on the genre, because we don't really have many takes on it at all. So a fresh take by a studio like this that has, is fairly large size. I'm like looking forward to something that isn't just copy and paste Bannerlord, but better. I'm looking for something, as much as I would like that actually, I'm looking for a fresh take on it, and it looks like they're doing some interesting stuff here. Again, we have no idea if it will actually shape out to be good, but so far so good. The next question is, how does character progression work? So characters level up through what we like to call the use-based skill development, which is basically a fancy way of saying if you want to get better at swing swords, you swing more swords. You want to get better at shooting a bow, then you shoot more bows. You'll also earn points, perk points, to fine-tune your character build and playstyle and unlock new perks in various disciplines. Beyond that, your journey includes troop training, diplomacy, and even climbing ladders of the social status. So again, this is all like, because you can make the argument a lot of the time, but this is all technically in Bannerlord to some extent, right? You can do diplomacy through their again, it's really bad. I'm not saying that Bannerlord has it, but I'm saying you can make an argument that Bannerlord has like a lot of this stuff of like climbing the social ladder. So again, it's all well and good them actually saying it's going to be here, but are these systems going to be fleshed out? Again, we don't know. It's good that they're putting stuff like this in there, and it sounds like it's going to be a focus of theirs to add in and flesh out these features. But again, until I see it, I'm going to be a bit skeptical. It's always a good sign, at least, them mentioning it, and they do mention it a couple more times as we go further along down the list. So the next one is, can you become a priest? So forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Currently, there's no plans to let the player become a priest. Religion is a thematic presence, but not playable. What the future will bring regarding religion, only time will tell. So again, maybe that'll be a feature they look into in like a DLC, but obviously that's a lot further down the line. line. They also mentioned, can you play as a bandit in early access, or what will the other route/professions you can start with? So they say it's a sandbox. You're free to play the way that you want to. Want to be a bandit? Go for it. Trader, knight, mercenary, captain, all on the table. That said, not every path will have a fully fleshed out progression or unique content just yet. At the beginning, we focused on the role of becoming an army commander in early access, so you can have absolutely roleplay whatever you like, but most developed content for now revolves around leading armies and carving out your legacy on the battlefield. Again, to be expected. Also, I just want to reiterate a point I just mentioned. You can be a bandit, you can be a trader, you can be a mercenary inside of Bannerlord. So you can say this and say that's going to be it. Again, maybe I'm just way too skeptical after 5 years of Bannerlord, but I'm excited to see that these are actually hopefully going to get fleshed out, and that's something that the team in early access are going to be working on as they kind of flesh out the main mechanics of the game. It's still exciting though. Hopefully, these are completely different playstyles and are very interesting. I'm very much looking forward to it. Next, the really interesting stuff. Battles. How do they work? So battles in Chronicles Medieval are a blend of strategic planning with third-person action. You'll set your tactics before the battle, like initiate orders or unit placement, and then dive into the fight head on, issuing commands as chaos unfolds around you. It's all about capturing the heat of battle, not just manning from above. Think immersion and dynamic, and not a traditional top-down RTS. This system is evolving, and the team is actively experimenting to strike the right balance between fun and realism. Not a fan of getting your hands dirty though? No problem. If you're leading into diplomacy or trade and prefer the pacifist playstyle, we've got you covered with a robust auto-resolve system. It will handle battles for you with plausible outcomes and realistic damage through a fair warning. It might not be as perfectly efficient as a seasoned commander doing it themselves, but hey, not everyone dreams of money boots and flying arrows, which is good. Again, obviously not everybody wants to fight for battles. Real quickly though, we'll answer the next question as well, because it kind of links into this one, and then I'll kind of actually the next couple questions. So the next one is, how will battles look and feel, and what exactly can we expect? So at launch of early access, battles in Chronicles Medieval will unfold across 3 immersive layers: General, Captain, and Combat. The General layer is your pre-battle command stage, where you get to set up your strategy, deploy your troops, and decide how the fighting begins. Then, once the clash has kicked off, you drop into the Captain layer in the third-person perspective, issuing real-time commands to nearby units while navigating the battlefield. I like that as well, that it does say nearby units, so that could suggest that as the battles grow bigger and bigger, like if you're not by a unit, you're not going to be able to give it a command to do something, and it's going to kind of default to its pre-battle commands that it's been given, which is going to be interesting. And then finally, when things get up close and personal, you'll step fully into the combat layer, engaging enemies directly in the thick of the action. This is where you show them who's the boss. You can seamlessly switch between the Captain and the combat layer on the go. It's designed to be fast and fluid, so you can issue commands on the fly using muscle memory while staying immersed in the action. So yeah, I basically imagine they also say as well, early access is just the beginning as they look to evolve the systems along our players, because basically depending on feedback on how stuff works. So yeah, from my understanding of this, it's going to be similar, because we have a pre-battle screen like in Bannerlord where you can deploy your soldiers. We have a system where you jump in and you play as a character. Of course, you play as your character, and then you also have the ability to press like 1 to select a group, and that's basically going to be each of it. So for example, the General layer is the pre-battle skin in Bannerlord. The next layer, the Captain layer, is when you're giving commands in Bannerlord, and then the bottom one is just you fully engaging. However, they also talk about combat in a second as well, and how it will actually work and stuff, which is pretty interesting, because from like the trailer and the other things we've gotten, it kind of gives me the vibe that like you're the commander, but you can kind of jump around your units and fight alongside them. Like, so you're not just playing as like one, you're playing as your character, but you can also like jump in and play the captains of different units. And it's not gonna, again, from the trailer, it doesn't look like you're gonna be recruiting 10 recruits. You're going to be recruiting like battalions of soldiers, and you'll be commanding like the sword and shield guys. You're going to be commanding the pikes. You're going to be commanding archers, and it's going to be like a predefined company of soldiers that you're bringing into your force, rather than recruiting every soldier individually. And again, I get the vibe from everything that they said, but it's going to be kind of like you're almost jumping between these units, and you're playing the captain of the archers or the captain of this unit or that unit, and you're leading them into battle. So again, it's a completely different take on the system, and that could just not be true from what we've seen, though it does seem like it's going to work like that. But again, I'm pretty interested in seeing how this is going to develop through the combat system. So they also say, how does combat work? Combat is super important for a game without a doubt, so we will share way more on that soon, but we won't leave you hanging. So here's a little snack on what we're doing. So in broad strokes, to keep the feeling fluid, responsive, and downright satisfying, we're adding motion warping, a system that helps your character automatically adjust combat position and close the gap when you're just out of range or slightly off target. They say, don't worry though, you won't warp around the map like the Enterprise. It's also making every swing feel impactful and just right, combining with our HEMA expert Bjorn Ruffo's insane attention to medieval combat details. I also believe that he is also a YouTuber as well, which is pretty cool. It's just clicks. Need more precision? Then just flip on the option lock on the mode to keep your camera locked on the target, preferring for duels, that one super annoying bandit scumbag, or just showing off your skills. We're balancing realism and fun, aiming to make every battle feel like it's just it could go either way. We want you to feel an urgency, the tension, the grit right in the heat of battle, with some exceptions of course. As your character gains efficiency from the untrained rookie to seasoned master, your combat rapport grows with you. Not only your character but also the NPCs will unlock new attacks, redefining techniques, evolving through stages like apprentice, journeyman, and master. The progress doesn't just add new moves, it replaces basic ones and with a more advanced, satisfies versions. So from that summary, I kind of get the vibe, but it's gonna be kind of like a For Honor style combat. Again, it's going to be like a For Honor or like a Chivalry style combat system. I get the vibe, but it's going to be a bit more arcadey in nature than say something like Bannerlord. And don't get me wrong, Bannerlord combat, you can just fucking swing left until they fail or block. You know, that's not realism in a sense, but the whole system does encourage it. Whereas I get the vibe from this, but again, like For Honor, I feel like with For Honor, you do kind of lock onto someone and you do a kill animation, and you like it's quick and efficient. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Again, I'm excited for this. I just feel like I don't want to have a situation where I'm playing, I don't know, do I mind that? It is an interesting take, because again, I'm so open for something new, and I don't mind it being a bit more arcadey, because that encourages more people to play it and stuff. And you know, but I don't know if For Honor, like to that extreme, is that just too arcadey, or is it fun? Is it cool when you're commanding soldiers? I don't know, we'll have to see. But yeah, that's kind of a vibe I get. Let me know if you guys disagree with it and you think it's gonna be a bit more something like, I don't mind that style of combat. I just don't want to be like an insane superhero on the battlefield, you know. I still want it to feel, you know, I don't want it to feel like For Honor in the combat where you are just cutting through like 50 dudes at once. But then again, in Bannerlord, you are a super soldier as well, so maybe I'm just over exaggerating. But still, a lot of good information there, very interesting. They also talk about weapons. We'll kind of blitz through a couple of these now. So they talk about weapons in the game, and there's just going to be a whole wealth of weapons from the medieval era, basically fitting in their eras. Another really important one we talk about is co-op play. So supported co-op play. This is something I mentioned in my previous video on it, but this is obviously very important. So the question is, will there be game support for co-op play? And they say absolutely. Huge. For early access, we will have co-op play in custom battles. Sad. However, where you can team up with a body for full release, meaning after early access, our vision is to bring co-op for the main campaign. Exactly how this would work is still being developed, so we can't promise anything at this point, but it is our big vision, riding into battle with a mate. Yeah, it's just different. Hell yeah, this is huge. If they can fulfill this promise, this has such good potential. It is the most requested feature in Bannerlord is to have co-op. It just is. Along with like diplomacy and stuff, but I would take co-op over diplomacy, because you could have your own friendly diplomacy and stuff. So yeah, this is absolutely huge. Riding into battle with friends, riding against them. I hope it is co-op, but also like a sandbox co-op. They do seem very much like they get the idea of it being a sandbox. You can do whatever you want to do in the game. So I'm hoping co-op will resemble that and be, you know, just as much as having fun. And, you know, sometimes maybe you're friendly with your co-op, sometimes you're maybe aggressive with them. But yeah, this right here could be absolutely huge for the game, and hopefully they pull it off. And yeah, I think this is a good indication that the game is trending towards something great. And also, this is one of the benefits from being able to build that game from the ground up. You can see all these features and develop the game with all of them in mind. And I think, yeah, it goes a very long day. They also mentioned are real historical events and people featured, and they say yes, the game will include real historical settings and figures depending on the chosen scenario. While the world is grounded in historical realism, some liberties are taken when it comes to historical accuracy. It's all careful balance to keep the gameplay fun and engaging. And obviously, right up until the point you press create your character, from there is your story. So the game will kind of begin in a lot more historical accuracy, and then from that point on, the world could completely change. You know, for example, the Spanish could fail their Reconquista. You know, that's kind of what they're suggesting right there. They also mentioned what historical periods will be covered, and they don't really say too much. They say they'll be mainly focusing around the 14th and 15th century, but having events like the Black Plague and the 100 Years' War. But yeah, more chapters will be added post launch. So again, I imagine the 100 Years' War will probably be the thing they release in early access. Next, they talk about politics and religion. So politics and social dynamics are an integral part of the experience of Chronicles Medieval. When it comes to religion, it's an important part in the medieval world, and we want to reflect that in various ways. The church will be present, but the scope will still be mapped out. So again, politics, they've mentioned it a couple times, seem like it's going to be quite important in the game, and climbing that social ladder. Again, hopefully there's lots of stuff to do in there, and they've mentioned passive play style, so hopefully you can like do some stuff at court and have fun that way. I think it could be really interesting to see that political playstyle kind of map there and go hand in hand with a more military focus. They also talk about, can you rule a kingdom? And they say, of course you can. You can rise through the territory, control over vassals. However, the game isn't going to be a kingdom management simulator. Focus remains on your character. How you manage your kingdom is done through your character interactions. So be on the lookout for good people to trust. So again, it does seem like it's not going to be like, I think that's kind of answered. It's not going to be like Crusader Kings where you're managing a kingdom, you're managing a realm. You're still going to be a Bannerlord character running around doing your own things. And hopefully there's still some kingdom management stuff there to at least make it interesting and fun and rewarding when you get to that stage. But again, it's not going to be like Crusader Kings. It's going to be much more like Bannerlord. And they also talk about how deep will the simulation be, and they just basically talk about the social diplomacy. Again, diplomacy once again. Simulation in the world has many systems, and they basically are utilizing that to help you create stories within your campaign, and obviously have your choices carry real weight on depending on what you do. A couple more now. So again, they talk about modding support, and I don't even have to read this. I can say yes, the game is going to have a huge level of modding support. They've already reached out to a whole wealth of Bannerlord modders, people from like Eagle Rising, Game of Thrones mods, RBM, Prophecy of Pendor from Warband, you name it, they've probably at least tried to reach out to them and have basically asked them, what can we do to make modding the game feel better for you guys? What tools should we look at? And that's such a huge green flag, because again, Bannerlord Warband wouldn't be alive in this current day if it wasn't for the insanely dedicated modders who just pour so much time into creating something absolutely amazing for free. And though I would say Tailworlds do somewhat to help supporting, having it built in from the ground up with good mod tools and accessibility, it's just so exciting, because that's what takes a game from being a 1 or a 2 year game to making it a game that spans 10-15 years. You know, I'll go back to Warband and still play the incredible mods there, and it feels so fun and entertaining. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what that looks like from the ground up. And the final question is basically about how does the game world feel? Is it going to be living and breathing? And they basically say they want to create a world that when you do actions, it has a rippling effect across the world. Some people might not like that because they want to play as just like an individual person. We'll have to see how it actually plays out. I'm interested to see exactly how it does. Again, and only time will tell. And then the last one is basically when will it release? And they say just wait. I imagine, again, it does seem like it is quite early in development. There still seems like there is quite a ways to go. I'm hoping maybe 2026 we could get a nice little glimpse of it. You know, they have released the trailer for it to kind of all the announcement. I would be very happy for an early access in 2026, but we will have to see. So that's going to sum it up for the video. Sorry if I yapped a lot, but obviously this is a Q&A video, so it's yapping central. Overall, I'm really, really excited. This Q&A has done a great thing. It seems like they've got a good idea, plan of what they want to try and achieve, and they're not shy to reach out to modders and people from the community, you know, who have been modding the game for tens of years, you know, which they're trying to kind of create a similar game to that. And again, it doesn't seem like they're just copying and pasting and making it better. It seems like they're trying to do their own take on it. I'm really interested to see how the battles will work. If you're going to be like jumping around and commanding divisions, the game that it kind of reminds me of a bit is that, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like you play as a mercenary during the 100 Years' War. Shout out if anybody remembers that game. And it's basically kind of like a Dynasty Warriors, but you weren't as much of a superhero. It was a really fun game anyway, and you basically ran around, you commanded units, but you were always one individual person. That's the kind of vibe that it is getting. And as I said, the combat definitely feels like it's going to be more on the arcadey side, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And again, it seems like they've got some good support there with their HEMA expert as well, so I'm looking forward to it. And obviously co-op's going to be huge. Co-op's going to be such a big thing. If the gameplay is good, and then co-op just enhances that, that is so exciting. So yeah, as I said, if you guys want to see more Chronicles Medieval on the channel whenever they drop new news, let me know. Drop a like and a comment. I'll see you guys in the next one.